Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining in. This is Chris DiLorenzo with CMD, your CPA and trusted advisor. Today's topic, we're going to be talking about 1099s. So we're going to talk about what they are, who should care about them, what you need to do by and when, and what happens if you don't. So there's a few types of 1099 forms that are relevant, but the one that almost always applies to small businesses are the 1099 miscellaneous forms. So that's the one that we're going to spend our time on today. So what are they? So the 1099 miscellaneous form is an informational form that gets provided to the IRS as well as certain vendors that your business pays. The form is very similar to a W-2 by that it's an informational form. The W-2 provides your employee's salary information, how much federal withholding, etc., and you provide that to your employee and to the IRS. So similarly with a 1099, you do this for vendors that you pay $600 or more. So who should care about them? So anytime you pay a vendor over $600 or more, typically you need to complete this form. Most people think of this as the independent contractor form. So you pay John Doe $700 to do some type of a service for you for your business, and you know you need to issue them a 1099. What many people do not realize is that even if you issue that form to John Doe LLC, you're still going to be required to file that same form. So as a way to summarize it, if you think about the 1099 form, anybody you pay $600 or more for rents or services, including parts and materials, you're going to send them a 1099. This can include somebody you pay office rent to. If you're a realtor and you pay a photographer to take pictures for you for your listings, you would send them a 1099. If you have a rental property and you have a handyman come over to do some repairs, $600 and more, you would issue the handyman a 1099. The person that cleans your office, consultants, etc., all those types of people, you'd be issuing a 1099. Now, there's also a fairly long list of exceptions for where you wouldn't have to issue a 1099. So, for example, if your vendor is a corporation, doesn't matter if they're a C or an S corporation, if they're a corporation, then you're not required to send them a 1099 unless they're an attorney. Government doesn't care about the business entity of the attorney, so attorneys get them no matter what. If your payments go to pay your office rent, but you're paying a property manager, in those instances, you're not required to issue the property manager a 1099. However, of course, that property manager is required to issue a 1099 to the owners of the property. Additionally, if you're buying merchandise, freight, storage, those types of vendors, you're not going to be issuing a 1099. Lastly, another important one to pay attention to, so this way you don't waste your time sending 1099s you don't have to, is if you're paying the vendor via credit card, for example, you're not required to submit a 1099 for any of those credit card payments. The credit card processors are actually required to submit a 1099K to the people, so this way you don't actually need to do that. Lastly, a point I want to make sure you're aware of is if you have any international contractors that are working for you, you very well may have a requirement to withhold federal income tax for them in addition to filing a Form 1099. So make sure you pay pretty close attention to that. So what do you need to do and when? So one of the things that you'll want to make sure that you do is that you've obtained a Form W-9 from all of your vendors. This is an informational form where they send it to you, and under the penalty of perjury over here in this section, they're asserting to you their name or their business name, their type of entity, the address, and their social security number or business taxpayer identification number. Once you've received that, you effectively have a liability shift from yourself to them, whereby as long as you file it and you file it with that information provided on the W-9, you've essentially filed a completed 1099, obviously presuming all of the other information is correct. Whereas if you don't have this form in your possession and you get audited and there's misinformation, you actually haven't filed a correct 1099 yet, which could subject you to interest, or not interest, but penalties from the IRS, which we'll talk about here in a minute. So when are they due? They're due by January 31st. You have to provide them to your vendors, and by the end of February, you also need to provide it to the IRS. One point of note that you actually have to put them in the mail is the requirement. If you're going to provide it to them electronically, you just need to get them to approve in writing that, hey, yes, you can send me my 1099 electronically, and then you're good to go that way as well. So now what happens if you don't send the 1099? Well, there's penalties, and so that's probably what you care about the most. So just quickly running down the list of penalties. So it's $50 per 1099 if you don't file it within 30 days, so effectively by the end of March. But there's a maximum penalty of $191,000 for small businesses. So the aggregate of all of those $50 miss or non-filings could aggregate all the way up to a penalty of $191,000. If you file it between 30 days late and August 1st, it's $100 per 1099 with a maximum potential penalty of a little over $500,000. And if you don't file them at all, or if you file them after August 1st, it's $270 per 1099, up to a maximum of over $1 million. So can get pretty significant. So it's very important that you have a good CPA on your side, that you get all of your required 1099s filed and filed timely. If you have any questions, please go ahead and leave them below. You can excuse me, you can subscribe to my channel for any topics like this, other business topics, accounting, tax-related matters. If you'd like any other information about me or my firm, you could visit my website at www.cmdcpa.com, and you can also subscribe to my blog to stay current on my newsletter at blog.cmdcpa.com.